Okay, we're going to go over an exercise that is a staple exercise in any good program. It's also an exercise that unfortunately a lot of people get wrong, and that is the classic hip hinge exercise, or an RDL variation of something like that. So we're going to go over this exercise and all of the principles that we apply into this one. Even though it's just body weight at this point in our program right now, we're going to apply these principles into all hip hinge exercises going forward throughout the duration of the program. To start things off, I'm going to go over some things that people make common errors while doing this exercise, and then we're going to go over the correct way of doing this exercise. And again, we'll apply it to everything we do with hip hinging throughout the program. So to start off with some mistakes that we'll see, people might start up nice and tall with it. I'd say the most common one that I'll see is people will start to hinge forward, and then they start to just let their knees bend with the movement. So as I bring my chest forward, I just start turning this into a bit of a squat. If I'm doing this, I'm getting much more quad involvement than I really want to out of the exercise. What we want to do is have a slight knee bend, and then we want to maintain that slight knee bend throughout the whole movement. There is no perfect amount of knee bend, but whatever knee bend we choose, we don't want it to change the degrees throughout the movement. I hinge forward, slight knee bend, and I maintain that knee bend as I push the hips backwards and then forwards. Another common error that we'll see is people get very spiny with the movement as we go into hyperextension, and I let that pelvis tip forward. So people go here. If I'm hitting this movement, I'm not really allowing my low back to work as a stabilizer. I'm going to be using that low back as a prime mover. Obviously, that's going to put a lot of stress on that low back, especially if we start to add more weight into this over time. Third one is people get flexion through that spine while we start going through this movement. And the hips go back, and then the shoulders roll forward. And now I'm not really putting myself into a very advantageous position to start progressively moving heavy and heavier weight over time and getting stronger. Another one that I'll see is, I'm going to exaggerate this one a little bit, is hips push back, and then all the weight goes onto the heels, and people start shifting backwards a little bit. Again, super exaggerated with this movement. You usually don't see people actually roll up off their feet, but pushing all of their weight back onto their heels, you're not going to be very balanced throughout that movement. One thing that I just want someone to try, I would encourage you to try this out before you do any hip hinging, is get set up, and I want you to hinge forward with your toes up. So just my toes are off the ground, the rest of my feet are. I'll do a hip hinge and toes are up. All right. If you're doing this, you might notice that this is very, very hamstring dominant. You probably don't feel your glutes at all in this movement. But give this a try. Go toes up on the way down, and then on the way up, I'm going to press my big toes into the floor. That's going to help get the glutes active a lot more. Toes up on the way down, press toes in, and push the hips forward. I don't actually want you doing toes up throughout the actual movements. I just want you to give that a try so that you can feel the difference in hamstring dominant versus glute dominant hip hinging. So let's go over how we'd actually do it and how I want to see it done. Let's start off head over heart, heart over pelvis, neutral pelvis as well, a slight knee bend that I maintain, and then I push my hips back as I bring my chest forward. I'm not going like this. I'm keeping a neutral spine. Throughout the movement, forehead towards the floor. I push my weight through my midfoot and then push my hips back forward. I'm getting space from my hip to my head with a long spine. On the way up, we're thrusting the pelvis forward. All of this movement is coming from the hip. Hips push back, hips push forward. If we can master that movement, we're going to do ourselves a lot of favors.